Hello everyone, hope you're doing well today. Okay, let me just double check that does everything work. Okay, today the topic of the lecture is how to react, how should you play when your opponent surprises you in the opening. And I will try to answer that question. I will try to give you some hints. I will try to show you some examples, because this is something very common for every chess player, right? That sometimes you just got the position in the opening and you are not sure what to do. But before I'll show you those examples, first thing we have to start from is we have to start with some short introduction about what is opening repertoire. Later, I'm gonna show you a couple basic hints how to play, a couple basic principles, and later I will try to show you some examples from my experience. Okay, so first of all, you need to know about how to play in the opening. Opening is the beginning of the game, of course. So when you start to play chess, you learn some couple basic principles, right? You know that you should move your pawns into the center. Second most important thing is you have to develop your minor pieces. Okay, third principle is you have to make the castle, and also the last one is develop your major pieces. So for example, something like that. And this is something that every chess player needs to know, right? I know that this is like something very basic, but those principles, when your opponent surprises you, quite often a good strategy is just to follow those principles, right? So go back to the basics and just follow those 4 principles, right? Later, when you play more chess, you have to pick some openings that you want to play, because you realize that in chess there are a lot of different openings, right? So it's not enough to know principles, right? It's just not enough for you. So you are starting to look for some openings, right? And for example, some players are playing e4, right, which is more common at the lower level. Some people are playing d4, right? Also, when you play black, you also play, for example, if your opponent plays e4 in the first move, some people play c5, for example, so Sicilian, right? So every player should have, every player who plays a little bit more needs to have its own opening repertoire. And usually you start with the one opening with one move for white, right? When you play e4, for example, you have to learn how to play against a lot of different openings actually, right? But usually you start your opening repertoire at the beginning is quite narrow, right? So let's say you play e4, you have got only one answer against every opponent move, right? The same happens when you play black, right? So someone plays, let's say, e4, and you play only the Caro-Kann defense, for example, right? Okay. Later, after some time, your opening repertoire becomes slightly more complicated, right? You have got, for example, 2 possibilities. Let's say you play Caro-Kann, but also you want to play something that is more sharp, so you play Sicilian, right? Maybe I will show you that on my example, okay? Because when I started to play chess, my repertoire looked this way, that of course, after when I started to play in some tournaments as white, I was always playing like a d4, right, as white. Later I start with the very universal pattern, right? So very universal pattern. And I always follow that pattern, right? So this is like a simplified Catalan, right? After some time, okay, that's what's my whole repertoire with white, right? After with black, against e4 I was playing e6, and I was playing here d5, right? And I was playing only Rubinstein variation in the French, right? And as black, I was playing Queen's Gambit, right? So that was my first repertoire. Later, after some time, my repertoire become more complex, I would say, right? I started to play d4, and when my opponent responds here, I started to play, I still wanted to play plans with g3, but I played it in a slightly more complicated way. I started with the c4, right? And now I played Catalan, right? So you see, it was like the evolution, right? I started with knowing only some basic principles how to play in the opening. Later I learned a couple of patterns, and later I also I learned how to play in a more complicated way. And let's say last step of the development was when I also started to play not only g3, but I also started to play, you know, some of the main lines, right? So this is like the proper evolution of your opening repertoire. Okay. You see, that introduction was very important. Soon you will understand why. Okay. You also need to know that despite of the fact that you have got your own opening repertoire, you also should know at least some basics of other openings. So for example, even that whole my life I was playing d4. I learned, or you know, I watched some grandmasters games, or I just analyzed for myself. For example, some lines in the Ruy Lopez, right, or also called Spanish, right? Because this is one of the basic openings. So despite of the fact you cannot, your thinking cannot be that narrow that okay, I will learn only openings that are that I play, right? You should. It's pretty important also to have at least, you know, minimum knowledge about every other any other opening. Of course, you don't need to know them as deep as your repertoire, but it helps you if you know some, you know, at least a little bit some other ideas, right? You can learn some other ideas. Sometimes you can even use those ideas in your you can use those ideas in your games, right? So it's also pretty important. I remember I had got a period in my life that I decided, okay, I have to study some of the openings out of my opening repertoire a little bit more. So I created something that is called second repertoire, right? So I just created like a second repertoire that I didn't want to play it. I didn't want to play that second repertoire in important games, but you know, in less important tournaments or something. And my second repertoire looked this way: that I played e4, and I learned how to play against Spanish, as I say. I learned how to play against Sicilian and any other answers. And when I was playing black, I also learned to play Sicilian, right, instead of the French, and so on. So this is also like that. I really recommend you to create some, you know, some second repertoire, right, or alternative repertoire that you can also play in less serious games, right? And it will give you like a huge boost, right, in your ideas, because you have to deal with completely different types and completely different positions. Yeah, so this is what I really recommend. And also you need to know that, you know, even if you all the time you play d4, it's like, you know, a general chess culture, right? You need to know, for example, that opening is called Spanish, right? And you need to know, at least you should know, right, if you want to call yourself a chess player, that at least some basic ideas, right? By the way, for example, I think it was Capablanca who said that you cannot understand chess strategy if you have never played Ruy Lopez, right, or Spanish, right? So this is also like why I want to encourage you to play something like that. Oh, okay. So that was like a short or quite long actually introduction. And now let's try to answer the question, how to react when your opponent surprises you. And you need to know that I was thinking how to explain it to you. And I decided that it's gonna be pretty good if I divide that into two parts. One part of the, you know, that you are surprised, that happens, I would say, more often, is when you just don't know the line, right? Your opponent plays something that or you got the position that you have never seen before, right? So this is let's say one, and I would say more popular case, right? You need to know how to play, how to react in such a positions. Second case is when you know the opening that you're playing, but your opponent obviously prepared something, right? And that case had prepared something, right? Because he also knew, your opponent also knows that you play, for example, French, so he prepared something special for you, right? So this is definitely something that you also need to know how to react, but because in this case actually preparation is pretty important. This is the reason why it usually happens in the higher level, I would say, right? Because when you play, you know, when I don't know 1200s are playing games like online, right? For example, they usually don't prepare against each other, right? So preparation, I mean that you follow opponent games and you try to realize what is your opponent repertoire, and you try to find the you know weak points in your opponent's repertoire, and you want to play the line that you will get the advantage. This is what do I mean by preparation, right? And usually you need to know that it happens in, you know, higher level and usually on the OTB tournaments. So this is like the second case. Let's start with the first case. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you short first example, right? This is like actually my story. It's like the story like 15 years ago or something. I was around 2000, maybe slightly more, but I remember, because nowadays everyone knows what London system is, right? Everyone knows that London system is something like that: bishop f4 and then e3 and so on and so on. So nowadays everyone knows that, right? But like 15 years ago, it wasn't actually that popular, right? I had got 2000 rating. My rating was like 2000, so I knew something about chess, I knew something about repertoires, but I remember one opponent played bishop f4 against me. And to be honest, I have never seen such idea. I have never seen such idea before, right? So I was surprised, right? So I was thinking this way. Okay, my opponent, first of all, what my opponent wants to do. Does my opponent threat anything or not? Okay, I didn't see any threat. Yeah, I mean, Paul, you're right that it's not possible to prepare when you're playing against random opponent. This is why I'm just saying that the first case is more common. Yeah, so you see, my opponent played bishop f4. And you see, I knew that, okay, my opponent doesn't create any direct threat to me. This is also important. Try to think what your opponent wants to achieve. I was thinking, okay, probably he just wants to develop pieces, right? So in this kind of situation, the best strategy is gonna be just to follow some basic principles, right? So you wanna follow. This is why I mentioned that those principles at the beginning, right? You wanna move your pawns into the center, develop minor pieces. Later you wanna castle. You wanna develop your major pieces. So, and this is what I did. I played here. Opponent went e3. I went e6. Okay, opponent played something like bishop d3. I played bishop e7. Okay, you can see that I directly follow all of my basic principles, right? Okay, knight d2, bishop b7. Okay, c3, knight d7. Castling, I played c5. And you can see that this is just the position. By the way, I followed the Tartakover variation of the of the Queen's Gambit, and you see my position after the opening is pretty good, right? So despite of the fact that my opponent surprised me by playing that bishop f4, this time I even didn't know that it is called London. I just decided to follow some basic principles, and yeah, I just got a good position after the opening, because this is what you want to get, right? If your opponent surprises you, you don't want to like win your game immediately. You want to get a good position. You don't want to lose immediately and get a good position after the opening. Okay, so this is let's say one first example. Second example is a little bit funny. because I remember I was 7 years old, so I didn't know much about chess. And as I told you, I was playing that simplified Catalan, right? But I remember that at the beginning of the game there was some of confusion. I think my opponent talked to me something, you know how kids are playing, and I just made a mistake, and by accident I touched wrong pawn. I touched the e pawn, and I was a little bit panicked, right? I even have to say, because I have got no idea, right, how to play e4. Like, I know for a 7 years old kids how does it sound, but all my life I just played the d4, right? But and then suddenly I touched the e pawn, right? So actually, okay, I have to say that more, it's not like that opponent surprises me, but I surprised myself, right? But yeah, okay. And I remember opponent went there, and I just remember that in friendly games against my dad, I used to play Spanish. I used to play Ruy Lopez. This is the reason I decided to go this way. I decided to play bishop b5, and I just remembered we played something like this. Went here. I knew two basic ideas from the Ruy Lopez, right? I remember opponent played h6, castling. I knew that I have to play rook e1 to protect this pawn and play here and here. So you see, it was pretty actually. Opponent went there, I went here. Opponent went there, I went c3. Okay, castling, I went d4. And you can see that here there is a pretty good position because I have got my pawns in the center. And later I just remember I developed my minor pieces, and somehow I got a pretty decent position after the opening, right? So actually this is, as you can see, it's pretty important to know some basic to know some, you know, some basics of the other openings, right? This is pretty important. Okay, the next example actually, and the next example doesn't come from my game. It comes from you know, friend of mine. My friend was playing black, and take a look. It was e4, e5. Okay, he used to play e5, right? Here, knight here, here knight f6. Okay, he felt pretty comfortable at the moment, because you can see that this is just, it is called four knights game. It's nothing special, right? This is just a completely standard position. But then suddenly his opponent played knight takes e5, and he was completely surprised, right? His rating was also, his and opponent's rating was also around 2000. So he couldn't suspect that opponent just blundered the knight, right? Because you can see that knight protects this pawn. And he was thinking, what is going on, right? By the way, nowadays it is called Halloween Gambit, right? There is an opening like this, but but during the game, he felt a little bit confused, right? Because he have never seen something like that before. So what to do in this kind of positions, right? And he was thinking, okay, what can I do? First of all, if you're not sure what to do, you should follow some principles. Second thing, avoid any complications. So he decided, okay, I'm gonna avoid any complications. Of course, obviously he has to take it. White plays d4, and you know nowadays it's pretty clear that the best move after the game, he checked everything, right, with the engine, and knight g6, and black can defend somehow against that attack. This is nowadays, like, what should you know, right? e5, there is like knight g8, and white has got an initiative, but black's position is pretty good, and usually black wins that. But during the game, he was completely surprised. He had got no idea. Maybe this is like, you know, so there is a line like this. So if he will try to keep the piece on the board, maybe that attack is too strong. He cannot survive that. So he decided, okay, in this case, I'm just gonna to give that material back to my opponent, because, okay, I will not have my knight, I will be not up a knight, but at least position is gonna be more solid, and white will have got no initiative, right? So he decided to play queen e7, takes, queen takes, okay? White played something like here, black went bishop b4. You see, he decided to avoid complications, and now he follows some basic principles how to play, right? So here actually d5, so you see another pawn goes into the center, and so on, and in the end he got an equal position after the opening, and in the end he won this game somehow, right? So you see, but a key moment was here. When you see that your opponent is, you know, playing something very sharp and you're confused, not sure what to do, very often if your opponent sacrifices something, usually they are doing that on purpose because they want to get some kind of initiative, right? So if you don't know what to do in this kind of, if you don't know how to defend, a safe option is just to give that piece back, right? So this is the story of my friend actually. Okay, let me tell you example from my game. I was playing actually black, and my opponent suddenly went to g4, and I was okay. I'm so confused because that move doesn't make any sense, and I was thinking, what's the idea of this move, right? Opponent plays g4. Never seen such a, you know, ridiculous move. It was OTB game, so I knew that opponent didn't make a mouse slip, right? Because if you play online, you may think that this is kind of, you know, a mouse slip. Opponent wanted to play g3 and pawn went to g4, but it was OTB game. So what to do at the moment, right? And I was thinking this way, okay, I can capture, but again, probably opponent prepares something, right? If opponent offers you a pawn and you have got no idea about the line, probably there is something, right? That opponent, because this is the first move that opponent expects, right? And I was thinking, okay, after g4, opponent will go e4. Okay, I will show you the line. I was thinking I will go back. Opponent probably will move e5. I will move my knight to d5. Opponent will probably go c4. I move my knight, and opponent probably will go here. And I asked myself, do I really want to play such a position? Because I'm up a pawn, that's true, but my development is not very good. Also, you can see that opponent has got, you know, a monster center. So yeah, I was just thinking, okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to play the line that my opponent prepared, because he for sure was prepared, had got some kind of preparation what to do after knight takes g4. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna play safe. I decided not to accept that pawn. I went d5, g5, I went knight e4, right? Okay, and you can see opponent went something like knight c3, right? I remember I captured pawn takes, and actually now I decided to follow basic principles. So I decided to play something like, you know, bishop f5, e6, bishop e7, you know, c5. I was just developing my minor pieces. Later I just castled and developed my major pieces, and yeah, I got a good position, right? So last two examples, this is something that happens pretty often, right? So don't go into the most obvious line. Usually, if you want to play safe, usually I recommend you to avoid complications, because you need to know that you know nothing about the line, and opponent prepares something. So don't go into the line that your opponent's preparation is very good, very strong, right? So those are like a couple examples from the those are like a couple examples from the what to do when you got the opening that you have never seen before. Okay, and now let me tell you a little bit about you know, that what happens less often, but it happens quite often in the higher level, that you expected something else from your opponent, and actually opponent played something else, and what to do in this kind of position. Maybe I have got pretty fresh example of something like that, because yesterday I played the OTB tournament, first tournament after a very long break, and I had got such a situation, right? So during the game I was even thinking, okay, I'm gonna explain that situation today on the lecture. Take a look. I was playing. It was a rapid tournament, but I was playing against the opponent that I played against she many times, many times in the past. So actually I knew what should I expect, right? And I was playing white. I played d4, and usually in previous games, she used to play c5, right? So it was like a Benoni. But suddenly she played e6. And I was thinking at the moment, okay, e6. And here I remember, I just, usually what should you play in the second move. But I was very surprised, and I was thinking, okay, probably she prepared something. She prepared some new solution, new opening against me, right? Because I used to play c4. I didn't know what should I expect, right? Because in the past she always used to play c5. So after e6, I had got two ways of playing. I can play a standard way, like c4 and so on, but then my opponent can do something that I don't expect. Maybe I will, go under some preparation, and I will get a bad position. And I was thinking what to do. And I was thinking, okay, I have never played e4 in the first move, but I play French as black, right? French defense. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm gonna play e4 because I knew that my opponent hasn't got much experience in the French. And I don't play. I have got no experience with the French with white, but I have got a lot of experience how to play a French as black. So I decided, after 1 minute of thinking, okay, I'm gonna surprise her and I'm gonna play e4, and she went d5. And actually we got the position that I didn't know much about this position, right, as white, and she didn't know much about this position as black, right? So actually we both were surprised, right? So actually I got a slightly better position after the opening because I knew it a little bit better than my opponent, right? But that moment was like absolutely crucial, right? That when I decided to change my standard opening c4 and play something that I have never played before, because I knew that opponent prepared something for that. So this is something that, something that happened actually yesterday. Another example, you see, for a very long time, I played d4, right? Opponent, I was playing, it was like a classical game. Again, it was like 15 years ago, so pretty long time ago. And I knew that my opponent is playing Queen's Gambit accepted, right? Queen's Gambit accepted is something like this, okay? And you need to know that against the Queen's Gambit accepted, I usually play plans with Queen a4, right? Black stops check, and I usually captured it, right? And you need to know that for a very long time, to avoid some weird lines, I used to play here, knight f3 in the second move, and c4, and against the Queen's Gambit accepted, I used to play something like this, queen takes c4, and so on, right? And I knew because I checked in the database that my opponent is playing something like that, so I prepared everything. I just reviewed the line and so on. And I came to the game, and my opponent played d5, I played here, and now my opponent played a6. And now I was, okay, I'm surprised, right? Because I did not expect a6. I expected knight f6. And I was thinking, okay, what is going on? What's the purpose of this move? And I just realized that opponent probably wants to play the Queen's Gambit accepted, but in a slightly different way, right? Because if I play c4, if black captures, queen a4 is not the move, because after queen a4, move that I usually play, opponent is going to play b5. And you can see there is a problem because queen is under attack and that pawn is well protected. So that actually is a problem. So what do you need to know? At this moment, again, I was thinking, what should I do right now? What should I do in this position? And I decided, okay, I will never go and play something that my opponent expects, right? I will try to change it a little bit. And I decided to play g3, and I decided opponent went here. I decided to go here. I made a castle. I played b3. So I played something something that I used to play at the beginning of my adventure with a chess, right? I decided to play something like this simplified Catalan because I really wanted to avoid my opponent's preparation, right? So you also need to know, you also need to react what you also need to react to that what happens on the board. It's very important to observe your opponent, right? It's very important. You need to know, does your opponent play fast? Does your opponent, thinks? Maybe you surprised your opponent and opponent, I don't know, didn't know the line and when you didn't know the line and played a mistake or something, right? So it's very important. But a key thing is, couple key points that I want you to remember is try to follow some basic principles when you're surprised. Avoid any complications. And try to because probably your opponent is prepared for the complications. When there are complications, it's very easy to make a mistake. And also another thing is sometimes try to think maybe you can also surprise your opponent, right? By changing moves order or picking the other line that your opponent does not expect. So those are like some basic principles how to play when your opponent wants to surprise you. When your opponent surprises you, hopefully, I really hope this is gonna help you to understand the topic. Okay, good. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoy it. And the next lecture is gonna be the next week. Probably it's gonna be on Tuesday. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you next week. And also don't forget to sign up to my newsletter. You will get also a free ebook. You have to visit that website, guide.matbobula.com. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.